walking home. It's a perfectly ordinary afternoon. You glance up, and there they are. A whole row of birds lined up on a power line, like tiny little musicians on a staff of sheet music. Now, think about what those wires actually are. They carry tens of thousands of volts of electricity, the kind of power that lights up entire neighborhoods. The kind that, if a human being touched it, would be fatal in an instant. And yet, those birds, completely unbothered. One of them is literally preening its feathers. So what is going on? Are birds made of some special material? Do they have some secret biological superpower? Or is there something about electricity itself that we've been misunderstanding all along? The answer, as it so often is in science, is both simpler and more mind-bending than you'd expect. Before we can understand why birds survive, we need to dismantle a myth most of us have been carrying around since childhood. Here it is: electricity does not just zap anything it touches. I know, it feels like it should. It's electricity. It's dangerous. Surely anything that gets near it is in trouble, right? Wrong. Electricity isn't a hungry predator looking for a victim. It's more like water flowing downhill. It only moves if it has somewhere to go. Specifically, electricity requires a complete circuit. It needs a continuous path that leads from a region of high electrical potential to a region of lower electrical potential. Power lines are engineered to be one part of a massive, carefully designed loop from power stations through transmission lines into homes and buildings and back again. The electricity flowing through those overhead wires is already committed to that path. Now, when a bird lands on the wire, it touches the line. But here's the critical thing. The bird doesn't complete a new circuit. It doesn't provide electricity with a better or different route to travel. The wire is made of highly conductive metal. It is, by an enormous margin, the easiest path available. A bird's body, by comparison, is a much poorer conductor. So what does electricity do? Exactly what it always does. It takes the path of least resistance. It stays in the wire. The bird might as well be invisible to it. Even if a bird's body could somehow compete with the wire as a conductor, it still wouldn't get shocked. Why? Because of something called voltage difference, or more technically, potential difference. Here's the key principle. Electricity only flows through a body when there is a difference in voltage between two contact points. When a bird sits on a single power line, both of its feet are touching the same wire at essentially the same point. Both feet are at the same voltage. There's no difference, no potential gap. This is the same reason that electricians can sometimes work safely near high-voltage equipment. It's not about how many volts are present. It's about whether those volts have a reason to move through you. Now, you might wonder, what about over long distances? Voltage can indeed vary slightly along a wire depending on resistance and length. But the distance between a bird's 2 feet, a few centimeters at most, is so tiny that the voltage difference is practically zero. Certainly not enough to drive any meaningful current through a small bird's body. Now, let's flip this around and answer the question you're probably already thinking. If the bird is safe, why would a human touching the same wire be in danger? Because of the ground. The human body, made largely of water and dissolved salts, is actually a decent electrical conductor. Current will happily flow from the high-voltage wire, through the person's body, and down into the ground to complete the circuit. That flow of current through living tissue is what causes electrocution. It disrupts the electrical signals that control your heart and muscles. It generates heat. Even a relatively small current, as little as 0.1 amperes, can be fatal. The bird never creates that circuit. It stays on one wire, both feet at the same voltage, no contact with the ground, no connection to anything else. It is in the electrical sense floating, even while physically perched. That single difference is the entire story. Now, it would be misleading to say that birds are completely immune to electrocution. They're not. And exceptions reveal exactly why the rule works. Birds can and do get electrocuted under specific circumstances. The most common scenario involves birds that touch 2 different wires at the same time, especially wires carrying different voltages. The moment a bird creates a bridge between those 2 wires, it becomes the path of least resistance between 2 different electrical potentials. Current flows. The result is usually fatal. Large birds are especially at risk. Eagles, ospreys, hawks, and owls have wingspans wide enough to accidentally connect a live wire to a grounded piece of equipment, a transformer, a metal pole, a nearby structure. In fact, bird electrocutions on power infrastructure were once a serious conservation concern, particularly for raptor populations. This led utility companies to redesign power poles in sensitive habitats. They added insulating covers over exposed hardware, increased the spacing between conductors, and installed perch guards to discourage birds from landing in dangerous positions. These changes have saved thousands of birds, including several endangered species, over the decades. So the danger is real. The birds that survive aren't doing so by accident. They just happen to behave in ways that keep them safe. Which brings us to a genuinely fascinating point. No bird has ever taken a physics class. No crow has studied Ohm's law. No sparrow has read a textbook on electrical potential. And yet, birds across hundreds of species instinctively perch in ways that keep them alive. How? Evolution. Here's the uncomfortable truth about natural selection. It doesn't require understanding. It only requires survival. Any bird in history that happened to sit awkwardly across two different wires or touch a live line while gripping a metal pole didn't survive long enough to reproduce. Its behavior, its instincts, its tendencies were removed from the gene pool. Over millions of years, the birds that remained were those whose natural perching behaviors happened to align with safe electrical practices. Not because they knew what they were doing, but because the ones who didn't know paid the ultimate price. What looks like intelligence is really just time. Millions of years of trial, error, and elimination, until what's left behind behaves as if it understands the rules. Nature is a brutal but extraordinarily effective teacher. There's a reason this particular phenomenon is taught in physics classrooms around the world. It's not just a fun animal fact, it's one of the cleanest demonstrations of how electricity actually works. The key insight is this: it's not voltage that kills, it's current. And current only flows when there's a completed circuit across a meaningful potential difference. A power line might carry 100,000 volts, but if you can somehow interact with it without becoming part of circuit, without creating a bridge between two different potentials, nothing happens. The voltage is irrelevant. The energy has nowhere to go. This is why electricians use insulated gloves and boots. Not just to block voltage, but to prevent themselves from completing a circuit. It's why birds are safe on a single wire, but not between two. It's why a rubber-soled shoe offers some protection. It breaks the path between you and the ground. Once you understand this principle, the world starts to look different. You see it in the design of electrical outlets, in the wiring of your car, in the way lightning rods work. The reason it's dangerous to stand under a tree during a storm. Everywhere you look, the same invisible rule is operating. And a small bird, calmly sitting on a wire above a busy street, is a living demonstration of all of it. Thanks for watching. If there's an everyday mystery you'd like us to explore next, drop in the comments, and your suggestions directly shape what we make. If you found this interesting, please like and subscribe. It genuinely helps us keep making videos like this. We'll see you in the next one.